I'm sitting down with Brazen Tongue, Ethan and Scott, two dudes that are just killing it right now. And I have to say, guys, thank you so much for just taking time out of like the busyness of life. You're dropping your album. I know one of you is in Chicago. Ethan, you're in Sweden, right?
I'm not right now, actually. I'm actually in the US.
Oh,
I normally I'm in Sweden.
okay. So, and then on top of that, I have to give it to you guys. You guys have managed to put together like one hell of an album, like a debut album. Like this, if this is like you guys knocking at the house and being like, "Hey, what's up? We're Brazen Tongue. Here's our like, holy hell, man!" I got the I was coordinating this interview with Corey, and I was telling you about that, and I was in Texas visiting my family, and so she sent me over the link to the album. So I'm like getting off the airplane. I'm getting in my car, and I go to put it in while I'm driving away, and I just kept going like, damn, like just damn. I between the mountain size vocals that you guys have pulled out, and then on top of that, these like in your face riffs. Seriously, Crackling Embers and Sorrows Drowned is really fucking good. Really good,
Thank you, man.
guys.
I'm glad you
Appreciate
like it.
that.
It is yeah, I love, man, when like something just completely catches you off guard and you're just like whoa, whoa, like it was awesome, dude. The riffs and just I'm a big vocal guy. I love vocals, man, and the vocals were insane. Like I can't get over that. I can't get over just how you guys blended such ferocious melodies, man, and just amazing atmosphere. And it was an experience, dude. I've had to listen to it about two or three times to really just soak it up. And really well done. So, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's been it's been good, man. The response has been good so far. This is our first time doing a proper kind of go at it, like PR wise. So, we didn't really know what to expect. I mean, we kind of dropped a single every 5 weeks leading up to, and it was pretty good response even then. And then when the album came out, I mean, first thing you notice is like the Spotify plays kind of skyrocketed, so that was cool to see for sure. Um, and it feels good to finally have this shit out, to be honest. I mean,
Hmm.
it's taken
Oh
so
yeah.
long. It's taken
Mm,
so long to put
mm.
everything together and then get it all recorded, and then it was not a very conventional process either. So I
This
feel good about
is
it.
this is 3 years in the making, right? You guys been working on it?
Longer than that.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude. I think the first song, the very first single, first track of the album, I think that was written probably at the tail end of 2016. Not like completely finalized or anything like that, but that's when like the first idea came out. And it's not so much that it took us like this long to write the material. It's just with us being so like far apart and time zone differences and just life stuff, it's like it's been very piecemeal, like getting one thing to happen, like getting the drums done. Recording Ethan's guitars was a whole thing that had to be like it had to happen at a certain time because he's only here so often, and vocals were done in a different studio than like the guitars. So, and we did the drums getting done like last, which is very unconventional.
hmm.
So it was
Yeah, we
a
recorded the
crazy.
lead guitars first.
You're
It
like
was
you're like
Yeah.
kind of
fuck it.
So
stupid.
We're rolling it our own way. This is how we're doing it.
I mean, well, yeah,
yeah,
it was like Scott said. Like I was in Chicago in 2019. That was the first thing we recorded was my guitars, and I was playing to like our Guitar Pro MIDI file basically when I was recording this shit. So
Dude,
yeah.
it is so all right. You've been working on this since 2016. This is your debut album, so a lot of people, this is a new experience for you. Like this, or is this a new experience for them as well? Can you give us like a brief history of how you two came to be?
It's kind of a long history, sadly enough. Um, God, when did we meet? It was in like 2004.
Yeah, yeah. 2000, like late 2004. That was when I moved
Yeah,
to
so
Chicago.
yeah, so basically we started. I was in college at the time, trying to put a band together. We ended up putting together a band. I don't recall how we found each other. It was probably, back then it was like posting a sign on the side of like Metal Haven,
That
the
was
record
how
store
I,
here.
yeah, that was it.
Is
That
that
was how I
it?
found you guys.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, Ethan ended up moving away, and then it was just kind of on the back burner for a while. I was doing my own thing. I was in a couple of other bands between then and now. And do you have anything you'd like to add, Ethan?
I could add that your video is laggy as fuck.
Oh, God damn
So,
it.
so I don't know. But no, yeah, like I moved to Chicago and I met up with Scott and this his friend Will who played in this band we had before too. Yeah, and we rehearsed a lot. Um, but we never really were able to like push into the realm of kind of playing lots of shows and doing shit like that because we were working on the songs like all the time. Um, and eventually, yeah, like the people just kind of started dropping off, and it was just me and him left. And we kept pushing, we kept writing, and we went through a couple of drummers, and then in the end, yeah, like you said, I mean, life kind of intervened. I ended up moving out of the country, and then we kind of kept we still had the idea that we would like write and play together even then, but it was super slow. I mean, everything slowed down to like a crawl basically. And then Scott was Scott started up this band Polyptic, which is more like
Mhm.
techie kind of death metal, but not like technical death metal, but more tech than not tech, I would say, but very like dissonant type of stuff, right? So
Okay.
um, so they rolled with that band for a while, and then in 2016, that was when the last Polyptic album came out, and then Scott hit me up like the following year and was kind of like, "Yo, I'm writing some new stuff, and it sounds kind of more like the stuff we were doing together." So he asked me if I wanted to jump on board, basically.
Have you guys found that it's almost easier just being a two-man group? Like obviously if you do lives, you might have session musicians to kind of help you out, but do you find it's just you two? Maybe it flows a little bit better being just you two.
I mean, it wasn't really the plan, I guess. I mean, we were originally going to work with some of the guys from Polyptic, and actually the bass player from Polyptic played bass on the album. But he ended up not, for a lot of reasons, not kind of joining.
Hmm.
The drummers have always been a problem for us, for some reason. I guess that's like what every metal guitar player slash vocalist says is that the drumming situation is never good. Um, but we ended up finding a killer fucking drummer to do the session work. I mean, Kevin is unbelievably good, and anybody who's heard him play knows it. And so we were really lucky, I think, to find him because his playing kind of really elevates the record in a big way. But back to your question, I mean, yeah, I think it's simpler to just have it between the two of us, and I think at the same time, like in most bands, I think there's probably like only one or two people kind of doing most of the work anyway.
Hmm.
A lot of the time, I don't know, maybe not every band is like that, but I think like most of the ones who kind of really push through and get successful, they got like
Yeah, it's like, hey,
one or
shut up,
two
play
core
this part.
people. I mean, it can get like
You,
that, but so I think it works pretty well the way we do it.
yeah, I mean, to your point, like, actually, when I started writing that song, I mean, it's like really short, catchy, to the point song. And it was kind of, I mean, I think the last record we did was the Politic record. I really like, I'm proud of the album, but it was not easy to make because it was very sort of democratic, and it was very
Mm.
like sort of songwriting by committee. And it got to a point where we would have 30 different versions of a song, in like a Dropbox, and trying to figure out what we were doing. And that I was like just burned out by that way of writing. So I think like Ethan and I have a little bit more of like sort of we each have like a role that's like defined in a way. I mean, we do overlap a little bit in each other's territory, but it's largely like it's mostly on this album. It was me coming up with like the foundations, and then Ethan's coming up with the melodies and the harmonies and things like that, and like elevating it, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
Although he did contribute certain like writing and arrangement ideas also, of course, and vice versa.
as well.
and I can imagine too, like just this will also like help you guys as friends bond even better, and because you guys are like thinking almost as one, you kind of know where the one's going to go and being able to input your ideas. You know what I mean? Like I can imagine
Yeah.
that you guys get along really well, which I feel like you have to if you're going to make like a really if you're going to do something like this.
Well, I mean, I flew all the way to Sweden to visit this guy once. Granted, it was to go to Inferno Festival in Norway, but I flew all the way to Sweden, and this guy took me to a burger shop, and he pointed at a burger called the Stupid Burger or something
No,
like
it
that. And he said, that one's for you. So I've been waiting 10 years to offer you the Stupid Burger. So what I'm trying to say, he's not a very good friend.
You suck.
it was actually called the loser meal.
Oh, the loser meal?
Fuck.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for flying all the way over here. Here's the loser meal.
Yeah, yeah. No,
That's
but I
awesome.
think we've always been on like very, very much the same page musically and personally. And
Mhm.
the problem for us has been finding like other people who also are on the same page.
Mm.
So
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like our problem when I think actually being far apart from each other has aided the productivity process because when we're actually like in the same room together, we can't stop like fucking around and doing like stupid goofy shit. So this actually
Yeah.
helps being far away and having it just be like having it just be on like, us in this Guitar Pro app and collaborating on riffs and stuff because there's no temptation for jokes,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah,
Yeah, and
jokes are our biggest weakness.
yeah, the time's intentional. It's like you got this window of opportunity. All right, man, we got to
mm,
pay attention.
yeah.
So, what's the story behind Brazen Tongue? How'd you guys come up with Brazen Tongue?
I guess I can take that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Brazen Tongue was a song title that we used in Polyptych. Honestly, man, coming up with band titles has never been easy, and especially now when it's a very saturated sort of market in that regard. So my thought was like, why not just plagiarize myself essentially and see if there's anything cool that I can use here. And scanning the old Polyptych material, and then Brazen Tongue immediately jumped out as something that kind of felt right because it's like I'm kind of a loud person. Sometimes I don't know when to shut up. That's part of it. But it kind of feels like somehow it just fits. It's cool. You could chant it maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a
Yeah.
dude. It's a cool band name, man. Like it looks cool. The way that you've come up with the logo design, it flows really well, and also too, like the album art, man, on this record is really fucking cool looking, dude. Like I love the burning moths and the body. Like really, it's really eye catching. Like if I'm walking into a store and I see this album, I'm gonna go, holy, like what is this?
yeah, man. Chris uh, for Misanthropic Art did that, and he's done art for me in the past on Polyptych albums. He's done art for like a lot of people, but yeah, he killed it on that. And that was an interesting story because for the longest time we had no idea what we wanted for the art, and it literally didn't. The idea didn't really come up until the day before, like he was starting to work on it, like starting to sketch stuff for us. Like I went to this weird like it's place called in Chicago called the Insect Asylum, and with my girlfriend, and we were looking at these like taxidermied like butterflies and stuff, and I don't know for whatever reason the idea just popped in my head, like kind of what you see. Although we ended up like sort of elaborating on it, but that the idea just popped in my head of like this like mummified body and the it kind of just symbolizes like some of the themes on the album, of sort of obviously the butterflies like sort of symbolize rebirth I know when
Yeah.
you say butterflies in the context of like a death metal interview, it feels a little strange. But
It,
It just
dude.
sounded funny the way you said it. So it reflects the themes on the album. Like butterflies. And
oh, right, yeah, yeah. So,
Dude,
all right, well, what I'm trying to say is, I'm glad you think it looks cool.
well, the imagery, man. Also, too, dude, like I'm very like empathic and whatever. So I love like I feel things like real deep. So I'll look at something and I'll go, dude, I get like a lot of this makes me think. This makes me feel a certain way. And like, for example, the one thing I really wanted to tell you guys, this was like a reoccurring feeling when I was listening to the album. I always tell myself, what am I feeling right now as I listen to this? Not the technicalities, not how do I feel? And I just felt like this fucking chaos, but like and also like this intense feeling of struggle throughout the songs. There was like this theme of I was feeling like, damn, like I feel struggle, but I always felt like there was like this feeling of perseverance as well. Like, yeah, right now I feel this struggle, but the way that feel the melodies went throughout the album, it kind of made me feel like, yeah, there's struggle, but there's also perseverance. And I don't really know the concept of the album, so like I definitely want to know what's what's the themes behind these songs or but that's what I was feeling. I was like I felt struggle, but I also felt like yeah, this perseverance on like a personal level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we were going for. I think when we were going for the lyrics, I mean, we didn't really set out to say, "Oh, we have a concept. We're going to write an album about struggle or whatever." But
Mhm.
it just seemed like we that was what we kept kind of circling towards. Um, there's albums there that touch on like really personal stuff that Ethan and I have been through. Um, and there's also songs on there too that are a little bit more abstract.
Mhm.
But there is sort of a common theme running through it in a lot of ways of just sort of moving past the past, which is probably not the most eloquent way to say that, but to tie back sort of like with the album art, there's a lot going on there on certain songs about just like how do you cope with things that have happened or decisions you regret or things like that. And Ethan, do you have anything you want to add there?
yeah, I mean, we kind of did put a lot of effort into the lyrics too. And I think Scott really nailed it on the delivery of the lyrics. Um, I was super fucking happy when I heard the first like vocal versions of the album because we hadn't really talked about how the arrangements of the vocals is all him. Like we didn't really talk about that, like how it should be.
Mm.
I didn't really try to. That's sort of like his thing. I didn't want to really micromanage that, so to speak. So when he came up with what he came up with was really really good, and his arrangements were really really good. And I mean thematically, yeah, it was everything he mentioned. A lot of it was just like dealing with the shit that life throws you, basically, and we were both kind of, it was during some years when we were both going through some personal stuff and but not entirely. I mean, but I think thematically it kind of tied it all together in the way of like, what do you see going on around you in the world, and then what do you see like going on in your own life, and what are you going to how are you going to process it, right? Like some things, yeah, okay, you're going to sort of persevere and get through it, but some things you just got to accept that this is what it is, and you can't do anything about it. So it's like it doesn't really matter how it makes you feel. You have to kind of move past it, or you don't, basically. So we I think that kind of kept popping back up again and again, um, in terms of like what we were thinking when we were writing it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, some stuff is more like fantastical, right? I mean, there's the last song is kind of going in and out of sort of pure fantasy stuff, and then more kind of like reflective, like thoughts that you might have, when you're processing deep, dark stuff that's going on in your life. So it's really like a kind of combination, and I think it ended up flowing really good.
Oh, dude, it did, man. And again, like the for especially like a death metal progressive feeling album, you gotta have, man, you gotta have the vocals to draw the person in. Like when I'm putting it in, there's got to be something there vocally to go, like you got my attention. And on top of that, really amazing like guitar riffs and everything. And not just, you can have really cool riffs, but the way you guys brought those riffs together to connect and to transition throughout the song, there wasn't a feeling of like repetition. It felt very flowy and organic. And again, man, I said it in the beginning, but like I the vocals, dude, were like fucking up there. Like some of the best I've heard in a long time when it comes to that. Like that's one of the big things I always talk about, man. I love vocals and I love that. And I'm listening to this and I'm just going like, holy hell, man, I haven't heard like just power like this in so long, man. Again, like it's really
Oh,
great, dude.
I think it's kind of
Thank you,
cool
man.
because I think Scott was kind of channeling the early '90s Morbid Angel David Vincent approach, where it's like harsh, but you can actually hear what the fuck he's saying.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
there
I
was
was
a
trying. That was important to me, is like trying to be as clear and enunciate as much as I can, as well. Um, I like being able to understand at least part of what people are saying.
yeah. Yeah, dude, you have to, instead of just grunting into the microphone. Like it was really, yeah, everything flowed really good. The one thing you were talking about, Ethan, about like it is what it is. Like yes, we're being dealt with things, but I think this album with what you guys are focusing on, when the people dive into the lyrics and everything, and to realize like I think I think society sometimes can struggle with their feelings. Like they just feel a certain way and they just give into it. And they're like, "Well, I feel this way, so it sucks." And it's like, "Well, I feel like I want to go do coke. That doesn't mean I go do it. Like I got to
mm.
stand up and
Speak for
I got
yourself, pal.
yeah. 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 So like you know what I mean? I have to, so I really like that you said that, man, because life is struggle, but life is also, you know, great. It's the perspective. And I think with what you guys are capturing on this album, man, and even like the the song titles, and I love the album name too, man, like Crackling Embers and Sorrows Drown. Like that's fucking metal as hell, dude. It's so good and it blends so well with the album art again. Like just good shit, man. You guys did really great.
Yeah, we
Um
like it.
I'm excited to see where this goes for you all. And I think with the you said, Ethan, that like this was a kind of like a first for you with like the PR type thing. And really like, I mean, you guys are already getting the praise and everything, and you can see the fruit of your labors. Like, damn, that's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, it is, and especially since of course, I haven't been really. I mean, I played in a few bands when I moved over to Sweden, but nothing like permanent.
Mhm.
I'd like played some shows with some guys and played bass in a band for a little while too, but I wasn't really. I didn't really find my footing in terms of like people I really clicked with. Um, so to come back and do this, I think was really cool. And especially like, we talked about it for a long time, like because when the album was done, we were kind of like, all right, well now what are we gonna do? Like, do we need a label? Do we need to, create some social media accounts and start spamming shit? Like, how does this work now in 2024?
Mhm.
And so that's been a bit of a learning process, like figuring out the right level to kind of take it to, and what are the channels now, and how do you get it in people's hands, because that was kind of the most important thing for us, right? Like how do I mean, obviously we like it when people buy the album on Bandcamp, but I mean, we're not expecting to, like, break even here. It doesn't really work like that anymore. I mean, you kind of, to make a good sounding album, you got to invest in it. um And so luckily, we're at a point where we actually could do that, and we could kind of dump some resources in and get it sounding good. Um, And I think, now the challenge is going to be kind of maintaining the momentum because, now we've worked on the social media for the past 5 months. We're not like super big, obviously, but I mean, we're seeing some growth and we're seeing the numbers uh, continue to plug away, basically, right? I think
Mm,
like one thing it seems to me now is like I didn't realize how like weekly oriented kind of the metal scene was online. Like it's very like every week there's 40 something, 50 something metal albums that come out, and everybody kind of scrambles to those albums and reviews them, and then next week it's like a new set of albums. So the fact that our record came out, what is it, like what is today even? It's been like about almost 2 weeks, and we're still kind of seeing the Spotify numbers creep up and stuff like that. I think it's a good sign. It's definitely cool to see.
what's each of your guys' favorite song on the album, personally?
Yeah, that's a
Why
tough
don't
question.
you go first?
I guess I'll say
Anytime
Last
to
Train from Miradol. That's the easy answer, but that was a very, very personal song for me. That was sort of like probably the most personal thing I've ever written. Um, it really was kind of a cathartic thing to write and to finally see, especially like come to fruition.
Mm,
It was kind of like closing the closing a chapter in a way musically, which I mean, I can't honestly say that I've had that sort of personal of a, I guess, experience with my anything else that I've done. So, I mean, I allowed myself to be much more vulnerable on that than I have in the past. So that song was a big deal for me personally.
mm,
I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite. I think probably my favorite right now it's between Metaviral, the second song, or the last song, the Maddening Symmetries song. But I think probably number two is my favorite because that one is just so intense and it has a really cool like break with the solo, and then it just comes back like harder than ever after that. And it's not like super melodic, but it's it has enough, right? And I think it's short, it's straightforward, it's to the point, and it just really kicks ass. And I really like that song. But I think like the whole album kind of almost feels like one song when I listen to it in some way. And I think that's
mm.
maybe because we don't really know how to write choruses. So they don't really there's not much of like a repeat factor going on. We have a couple of choruses in some songs, but a lot of it is just like it's just kind of shifting and moving along all the time to like where you start with the first song and you listen to it all the way through and then it replays again and you're like, okay. I mean, we like wrote it and I find myself kind of listening to it often because I actually like it a lot.
There was I like too how some of the songs there almost didn't feel like an end. It would flow into like the next song, and I would be like, "Oh, we're into the next song." And I thought, but that, like what you said, I think that's cool, man, because it is the whole album is just like a wild river, man. Like it starts, and you gotta buckle up and hang on as it guides you through on this journey. And I really think with what you guys have done, you've set what you wanted to do. You set out and you did it, you know?
We didn't really know how it was going to go because there's sort of a slow kind of build up when you're putting out singles and nobody knows who you are, and you start seeing a little bit of people react to it, but it's not until the full thing comes out that you really see like, okay, this is, that it has it. I don't know if it's a huge impact, but it definitely has some kind of impact. So
Yeah,
that's good. That's good enough.
absolutely. I I wanted to ask you guys one this is like the one final question I wanted to ask. Is one thing that you're hoping this album accomplishes like for the listener?
That's a heavy question. I mean, I feel like I will say the people who have connected to it from what I've seen and what I've read and things like that, I do think that the people who like it, they seem to really like it, and they seem to like really understand what we were doing, like musically and conceptually, and they seem to be clicking with it, and that's very gratifying. I mean, I think from a musical point of view, it's kind of just a synthesis of, every all of Ethan and I's influences, which is like we're really, really rooted. I think I think Ethan would agree in like the classic stuff, like classic thrash and heavy metal.
Mhm.
I unashamedly like say that I'm a huge like old Metallica fan and
Mhm.
like King Diamond and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a meeting of taking the extreme influences that we've accrued over the years. Like Ethan mentioned, like Morbid Angel, that is a big influence. Dissection, bands like that, um, and just sort of I guess find kind of synthesizing all that in a way that's coherent and that feels honest. And I think we did that. I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm happy that when people do respond positively to it, they seem to get that that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah. I busted out my old Merciful Fate just for you,
That's
Mike. No, I think what I would like people to think about is that, you know, just because something is like heavy and it's melodic, it doesn't mean that it's melodic death metal. Because I don't
mm,
think we seem to be getting that label a little bit, and I do understand why, but I don't think we sound anything like In Flames, Dark Tranquility, Amon Amarth, uh, Kill Switch. I don't think we sound like that. Um, so we kind of tried to push this like traditional metal blended with kind of death thrash metal, and that sometimes that sticks, sometimes it doesn't. But just to get people kind of, I don't know, maybe experimenting a little bit more,
mhm.
whether it's like a band that listens to us or just a casual like metal fan. I mean, I feel like the genre tropes are getting pretty intense in metal now. And you even got like a lot of people kind of going back to the old stuff and like faithfully reproducing that. I mean, here in Sweden, like you can't like walk around Gothenburg and like without running into, I mean, there's okay, I shouldn't say that. There's not that much like local metal here anymore, unfortunately. Um, but I mean, everybody is in these, some very traditional 80s worship bands, right? And a lot of its stuff is really fucking good. But it's not really like doesn't really sound new to my ears a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And some of it does. I don't want to say everybody, but just try to grow past your influences. I think that's something that we really try to do. And the more bands that do that successfully, the better for the scene in general, I think.
Of anything, you had melody like with your riffs and everything, but I really got the thrash influence probably more than anything. But then you also threw in really great progression. So there was a little bit of like a progressive feel. And then again, too, like the vocals, like you said, they really like kind of pulled back to like almost back in the day a little bit. And but yeah, I really just was feeling like a death thrashy feel to it, but it did sound unique. It didn't, it's, you can't really put your finger on it, which is good.
I think the clean vocals kind of confuse people too, because we really kind of didn't know we were going to do that. I mean, we knew we kind of wanted to, but we didn't know what it was going to sound like. And yeah, Scott totally killed it on that, and Andy, uh, the engineer, he helped a lot too, I think, right?
Oh yeah, because I mean, we went in there and I'm like, honestly, like we wanted to do clean vocals, but to be perfectly frank, we weren't sure if it was going to sound right on the album. I mean, my the entirety of my clean singing experience was essentially in karaoke bars doing metal versions of Celine Dion on the weekends. I do a mean "My Heart Will Go On," uh, but yeah, so it was a little bit of an experiment. I went in the studio and I was like, all right, we're going to try this. And Andy was super on board. By the way, Andy's awesome. And if you're going to chance to see Weekend Nachos, it's fun as hell. I don't know. Maybe you saw them at MDF. But yeah,
I
man,
miss them.
we went in. Oh, dude, it was
I
so
know.
fun. But yeah, man, we went in there and basically I had a pretty good idea of what I was going to do. But then Andy was like, let's harmonize this, let's harmonize that. And before we knew it, like, we were writing all these like vocal harmonies like on the spot and just tracking them in like one day. And so it went from being like, are we going to do this to being like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to do this. Let's go.
I loved like the growls with the cleans right underneath, like singing the same thing. That was like really cool to the ears because I don't hear too many people doing that. Like I don't hear too
Yeah,
many.
we try to take like a different, like a unique approach to using the clean vocals where it's not like, oh, we're going to sing like a catchy chorus and we're going to growl the verse. I think that happens a lot. That's become kind of a thing. But like, in some cases, yeah, it's almost like the growls or the forefront vocal, and we use the cleans as more of like a backing
Mm.
track in a sense. So, you know, tried to just keep it varied and just do whatever seemed appropriate for the part and for the song.
This was
No,
awesome, man. Thank you so much for just taking time out of your evening to be here, dude, and just getting to let me get to know you guys a little bit more. And I'm really excited for both of you. And yeah, thanks again.
cheers, man. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
man. It's
us.
been a lot of fun. Appreciate the opportunity.